Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sarah Jane, and I am delighted to be joined by Greta Foster for the program today. Greta, thank you so much for agreeing to join us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Greta's going to be sharing with us harmony by design using Feng Shui. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. But a little more about Greta. Greta Foster is a Feng Shui practitioner, teacher, and founder of Nat.org Feng Shui, a practice devoted to creating harmony, abundance, and spiritual renewal through international design, with a background in education and a lifelong passion for energy work. Greta integrates ancient wisdom with modern practicality, helping clients align with their homes, businesses, and inner lives with natural flow and purpose. Her work emphasizes transformation through space, teaching how our surroundings mirror the stories we tell ourselves. Greta's mission is to empower others to cultivate environments that support healing, creativity, and growth. Whether leading workshops, consulting on homes and land, or mentoring through her membership program, she guides clients to rediscover the power of mindful living and energetic balance. Greta, thank you for joining us. Please share a little of your story and why this speaks to you the way it does.
Okay. Yes. So my story has been historically as a teacher in the classroom setting. And, through my personal journey, I will say, Feng Shui has really resonated for me. And it's been a really great grounding practice. I will say it's not the only thing that has been a part of my personal healing journey, but this has really guided me in a way that I did not expect. It has become the kind of the roadmap as I go through my life. And it's really brought in a ton of blessings, and I'm going to say challenges as well. But it really has been the one thing that has stuck with me as I continue my journey.
So you've really embraced it for yourself, for your home, for your work. So how did you get started with it?
I got started. So I started researching it on my own. And, I had a really small living situation. We were actually living at a ski resort in a small basement apartment. So we had terrible feng shui at our place. It was the energy could hardly find our door. We were underneath, buried under snow. And so I got started through self-practice, but then I elevated my studies. About 2014 is when I went through, it was China Studies, it was an accreditation. So I did do a formal training with this school out of Nevada City. And then I started my practice. I started working with clients and, in tandem, practicing and experiencing it on my own. And so that was how I got started.
So do you work within people? Share a little actually about how it worked for you personally, because I think a lot of people think about it as being for the home, but you talked about it being for yourself, for something personal, which I take it wasn't so. Obviously, the home energy is something that many are aware of, even if not fully aware of. But for yourself, how does that work for somebody as an individual?
So that is the duality of this practice, is that, yes, there is the design factor, but when you start to weave intentionality into it and goals and dreams, and learning about the different aspects of the Bagua map, which effectively maps out the energy in the space and then connects it to a life theme. I would say relationships and getting more money, and if there's family issues, those are the type of things where people really struggle with those regularly. And Feng Shui really opened my eyes to the other aspects that create a fulfilling life. And I have history as an artist, a painter, and so learning that creativity and joy is equally important as love and relationships, and really validating things that I was doing, but I didn't compartmentalize them in any way. And so it helped organize my space in a way that made sense. And I believed in the philosophy that it's life and health promoting, but it also helped me organize my perception on my own life. So that I could see where, maybe I've been neglecting this one aspect, and it just brought my attention to it. And a lot of times that is enough, is just to be aware of the fact that your spirituality is just as important as your finances, because they're all a part of the bigger picture.
You talked about, did you say it was the Bagua map?
Yes.
That's not a term I've heard. I don't really know much about this, but can you explain a little bit more about that?
Definitely. So the Bagua is eight squares. Okay. And so these are the 8 components of life, and they sit in a certain spot in relationship to each other. And so the Bagua map is kind of the guide to compartmentalize your space, or, the energy that you're putting into certain aspects of your life. And this is ancient knowledge. It was received through the back of a tortoise and interpreted by the Chinese. So this is going back 3,000 years, but this turtle imagery shows up in Native American cultures as well. And it really connects higher to astrology. It's a minimal version of what we know as astrology, where we have our 12 signs. And so it is a longstanding ancient knowledge of these energies. And so, like, I'm giving them a name like love and spirituality and that, but they also, at the root of it, it's an ever-changing balance of the yin and yang symbol. So it's action versus non-action. And when we find that orienting in different places, it's translated into these emotion. Well, they're more the concepts like of love and relationship. And it can also be derived for guidance on how to rebalance a situation with that concept being tied in as well.
I love the fact that you talked about the turtle, because I work with many mythical beings, and I'm sure it's grandmother turtle, and the myth, the legend is of the earth basically being built on the turtle's back. Mm-hmm. So much I think relates to nature, full stop, doesn't it?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So are there any, sorry, I have a love of nature as well. Are there any aspects that really speak from a nature perspective within this?
Yes. So, when we talk about the duality and how this is presented or it manifested in the physical form of the tortoise, that is nature speaking to us and revealing divine order, and seeing it cross-culturally. Of course, that is what I would call universal truths. And so being able to look at the bigger picture on things, seeing the universal truth, Of course, this talks to rhythms too. Being in balance, using Feng Shui as a model, helps us reconnect to the rhythms of nature. It also helps us reconnect to the natural state of ourselves, boosting authenticity and our strength as an individual. But it really also too, we have our signs and our symbols and our guidance from the universe, becoming more in tune with those. And so life force, nature being the life force, it's a huge integral part of this. We're not going to be appreciating life in the same way if we're not, aware of the impact of our actions, so to speak. So this helps. It's very introspective, but it also is reconnecting to the rhythms of nature in order to feed us, in order to feed on that life source, which is what the chi is, and the cultivating of the life force, so that we can, as humans, connected to source and of human, we can kind of wield some power in nature, over nature, some might try. However, working with the rhythms is when we find our win-win and get to really strong synergy without long-term consequences for maybe misusing this knowledge.
So, okay, so listening to sort of what you're saying, so does it also work with not also work, so it works with the seasons?
Seasonally, we have shifts in our energy. And that would, lead us to understand that Feng Shui is not a one and done. You can lock in certain elements, but as we evolve as a person, and that does connect to seasons, we have a different expression of self, just even in how we dress seasonally. But there is some predictability to our seasonal changes that can be scaffolded and supported through Feng Shui, but also paying attention, like I said, astrology and cosmic shifts that will impact us. And so we have a bit of a toolkit to maintain our balance in times of change. And that is, Feng Shui is wind and water. Those are the elements of change. And, the real wisdom is how to maintain balance during times of change and make good decisions based on knowing ourselves through those times of change too. So we could almost even capitalize on chaos and energy shifts, which were very much more applicable throughout history. I think we're a little more complacent, and we like the comfort and the convenience of things. But this was a very powerful tool for historically as well. So I don't know whether it's possible to have an example, but I'm just thinking, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we've gone from summer and we've now gone into autumn. Right. And the clocks have changed. It's a lot darker mornings and evenings, and that's quite a change to a lot of people, and that there are people who are very much affected by things like SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Is there something sort of potentially within, and that's usually even worse, but I think once we get into winter and before we get into spring for people, is there anything that you can share sort of like an example within that? Because I know, obviously, if the folks are listening down in Australia and New Zealand, then obviously they're going from sort of spring into summer. But obviously, both of us are going through sort of summer now, well into autumn, and it's getting quite a lot cooler as well. Yes, definitely. So fall is this transition time where we are working on maintaining balance, as all of a sudden, we have a windy, rainy day, and we need to proceed with caution, I guess, in terms of volatility, things. This is that transition. I like what I've heard recently, though, is thinking of it as the light time of the year and the dark time. So that simplifies it from, the 4 seasons to kind of 2, which is in alignment with the Bagua as well. And so we need to respect the differences and work with it in the way that feeds us. That would be the best thing to take into account. The light months, when we have more sunlight, we are meant to be active. We're meant to be in our yang energy and to, experience daylight as much as possible. On the contrast, in the winter, in the darker months, we are meant to rest. We are meant to go inside and to hibernate to a certain degree, and to let all that activity, all that action that we did during the light months come in to now and rest, and to have us process what we just experienced. And so this really gets to the importance of both action and non-action. How we rest is just as important as what we do during the day, and understanding if we're not active during the day, that our rest is not going to be as quality as it can. And so seeing the duality play out in many aspects of our life is where you're kind of keen in on the seasonal shifting. But like the daylight is definitely the emotional and the natural regulator of our sleep systems. And so using that as our guide, I think is good. I think going for more rest in the darker months is what nature is telling us to do. And it would be, greatly benefit us. Of course, when we're opening our doors and windows less, so there might be less fresh air in our space, getting more to the tangible side of Feng Shui. You don't want to let the clutter pile up, because it's in a deficit at this time, the energy coming in. And so we want to, stay organized on the inside, but also to bring in as much as we can, because we know it's minimized.
I'm just thinking about sort of the trees, and so many people sort of share about sort of nature shows us, sort of how easy it is to let go. And it is that time of rest. It is that sort of, because the trees, they then sort of, they have a sleep, sort of they rest, so that then come the spring, I'm going to say bloom again, but sort of, so it is taking and birds migrate, and sort of the insects hibernate, and squirrels and sort of all sorts of animals, they go into hibernation. And it doesn't, we humans have got things just a little bit too overactive, I think, haven't we?
Yes. I mean, we're expected to go to work and do our thing no matter what the season is, for sure. It occurred to me too, I have 2 beautiful red leaf trees outside my house. One storm comes along and one is completely bare, and one is still holding on to its foliage at this time. And it's just, even within that, we see that there's an individual process for each tree. And I just thought that was really special. And, one swift change can come along and change everything,
So it's also a matter of helping us to become more flexible within our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So is that, this is, I've never heard about it in this depth, and I suppose in this perspective before.
Mm-hmm.
So in respect of something suddenly changing on you, obviously it's about all of us trying to remain calm in that sort of situation, sort of. But is there any suggestions from the point of view of Feng Shui that can support people to, if necessary, just take a breath and right, now let's think it through type thing.
Right. Yes, I think there is so much to be gained there. You know, there's no feng shui without faith. Okay, so our faith is in the divine order of the universe and that we are on our destined path, you know, not linear, maybe not linear. It's going to flow more like a river is our metaphor in feng shui, that it's curvy and things can happen. And, you know, with flexibility, you can bend or you can break, is again another tree analogy. They bend in the wind, they're not breaking. And I think that where feng shui, you know, it's Taoism, you know, there's Buddhism. This also went through India with this practice. So it is an interfaith practice, but I have always seen it as a philosophy. And so it's your mentality. It's all in your mentality of when something happens, are we going to, you know, how we're going to process it? And are we going to see the opportunity, which with faith, you would believe that this is a divinely orchestrated thing. And you would say, okay, time to navigate, time to use my tools, time to use my strengths that I've discovered, you know, and I know what I'm good at, and help read the signs from the universe at that time. That's when you get to interact. If we're not having change, we're kind of staying the course. But when it's time to navigate your path, it's strongly advised through this practice that you're working with the universe to fall into alignment and help things move more smoothly for you.
Being interactive within our lives is something that we absolutely have to do. I mean, a few years ago, I sort of read one of these little things that crop up on Facebook and LinkedIn and other social media. And it's just like, and it was just like, if everything is easy, you're on the wrong path. Right. And I thought, no, I don't actually believe that, because when I moved to the area I'm in now, and I broke up my marriage, the job went, I got the chance to actually, seriously, when I broke up my marriage, and started giving up a whole load of stuff that really wasn't for me, didn't resonate with me, I was proactive in that. I did that. And then, the job was going to go. And it was just like, okay. But then there was the chance to move with that job to actually nearer my own family. And it was just like, so I took the secondment. And I wasn't going to stay working there. And it was just a matter of, but I was buying a house and things around the purchase of the house, again, being proactive, but listening to the guidance of things, but also setting things up. Mm-hmm. And so everything just seemed to flow, but I was proactive within that flow.
Yep. Yep.
And it was just like, and I hadn't even started this journey. I just somehow knew. And I left that job and I was in a new one within 6 days, including the interview. Just suddenly, it was just so flow, providing, we show the universe to a certain degree when we are ready, but the universe will sometimes kick us and say, now it's time. And they will make things happen, but you still got to be proactive. And I take it that's all part and parcel of what you're talking about. It's listen but be part of it.
Yes, exactly. There is a personal journey, right? That we should be developing our sense of self, or we're on a personal journey. We'll call it our destiny. You know, there is some times when we're meant to be more passive and open to receiving the messages, but the direction ultimately we're going to choose the direction that we go. So it's, the having a goal in mind you're going to be looking for the opportunities that we trust the universe is going to provide. And, you know, say you have that goal and you never see the opportunities come to fruition for that goal, that is a sign in itself, is that, okay, maybe we're going the wrong direction. Maybe we need a backtrack. You know, in times of chaos, it's more important to have a direction, right? Because you could get tossed one way or the other. That is our anchor, our true north. You know, our authenticity can be our direction, is just knowing yourself well enough to say, I'm going to go get a hamburger instead of tacos, you know, and that's going to be enough for the universe to work with what you're doing. So, you know, having a direction is definitely there. But being open to feedback is, in Native American, again, they will call it dancing with the wheel. And I think that's a lovely way to look at it, is that it is a dance of, you know, leading and following and, you know, dancing to your own song even. It is all really poetic. You know, there's a lot of depth to it. But it's also really exciting when you're in those moments, you know, being on the journey and the boredom that we have or could have with our daily life is our lack of input into what's going on. And so contributing and experiencing life in a bigger way.
There's a saying, perhaps when everything is falling apart, it is actually falling together.
Right.
Being open to that. And there's something else, isn't there, about when everything has fallen apart, you have the choice to pick up the pieces that you wish to keep in your life and let the rest of them go. And I know it's not the perfect way of it being put, but we do have that choice. And it's about, yeah, okay, there are times when things happen and it appears we don't have any choice, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
How many people sit on the fence? That's the choice they've made, not to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so no, this is fascinating. So really sort of, it's not just about the layout of your home, the way you have things, that don't put a mirror opposite a bed, that sort of type of thing. Sort of, it's about, it goes so much deeper.
Yeah.
For the individual. Is there anything that you can share that sort of people can potentially do either for themselves or within their home, that if they feel they've got a blockage of some sort?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So perfect. So when you're talking the falling, you kind of triggered me with my one is falling forward. Okay. And so with Feng Shui, there is some trial and error as you start to put in your input to your space in order to call in guidance from the universe. And so there will be things that you try and you're like, oh, wait, this does not work. And you're going to experience the success through sometimes the failures, of course, because you're going to learn what not to do. But it's kind of like landscaping as well, where when you're like, oh, I'm going to eliminate this because I heard that's bad. You know, that's bad. I'm going to get rid of the bad stuff because I want to protect myself. Right. But in landscaping, too, we're going to pull the weeds, but also placing the shrubs exactly where you want them to be is what makes the beautiful landscape. It's not just pulling out and removing the dead stuff. And so with blockages in particular, we will know that like there is a science to the flow, right? And there is a pecking order, you would say, of what energy is ready to be addressed versus those stuff that's not quite a priority at certain times. So there is somewhat of an intuitive practice that goes into identifying, like, if we have a stress in our lives, a consistent stress or a blockage, that we would want to go back and unravel where it's rooted from. And that could be like I have my bed in the wrong place. that's why I'm not sleeping well. It might be that obvious, right? It might not be. It might not be. And so I think through getting involved, it does tend to guide you. But it depends on the blockage. And the blockage could be ancestor. It could be, healing your lineage. It could be something that needs to be addressed physically, like a massage, and that, again, the duality, the as above, below, and the faith in this universal principle is that I know that if I clean the dishes in my sink at this very moment, then I'm going to feel a different way than I did before. And of course, the butterfly effect, we know it ripples out. We can't always quantify or comprehend all the things that it's going to do. But the fact that we work on our home space, we work on our interior, we work on our home space. We're not trying to control everything that happens outside of our door. And right there, that compartmentalization is relieving a lot of stress that people put on themselves about things they can't control. So,
yeah. As you were sort of talking, it sort of reminded me that in actually both this house and the previous house, ley lines running through them. Do ley lines have an effect on, because I had a friend and I had a city, and every time she came, she sat in a spot and she eventually said to me, Sarah, it feels really strange. I said, well, why don't you move? Because you're sat on the ley line. And she was just like, oh, okay. She said, oh, that feels better. She came into this house. She sat down and she said, Sarah, I said, well, you've done it again, haven't you? You're sat on the ley line. She moved. Said, oh, that's better.
Yes.
Discovered the ley line because obviously it runs through the whole house, upstairs and down. And I realized that the ley line was running straight across my bed, if you like, sort of almost cutting me. Sort of. So yeah. I moved my bed so that it was then going through it was going through that same part of the room and the bed was out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, do they have an effect?
They do. And this is actually this is my current body of research as I'm applying Feng Shui to the entire United States. The ley lines has become Bagua sectioning and starting to make the connections between this and the ley lines is basically how I segmented the United States into Baguas. About 15 years ago, I had a roommate who was really into this. And so I had heard about it, but I never really got to any conclusion of like ley lines are good or ley lines are bad, or how does it even impact, further study and learning about ancient civilizations. We know that these could actually be generating free energy that we are not tapping into, depending on whether you're on just the line or the cross of multiple lines. This is kind of on the edge of our consciousness right now. I think people have been questioning and digging into it a little bit, but like, it's not in action, right? They're not talked about, and they're not going to consider whether or not they're building a house on a ley line. They're just, so it's definitely a line of energy. It's definitely something going on there. And where my work will be with my writing is evidence of what is going on. What can I look at the evidence, the physical, the manifestations that's on the ley lines, and come to some conclusions about what this is about for us. Mm-hmm.
No, they've always sort of interested me, sort of nature and different things, but I've actually got ley lines that cross in the house.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I know the spot that they cross.
So we will talk more about that. I will have some questions for you.
So okay, sort of, it's just like we're not actually that far from the end of the program. Is there anything that you would like to sort of share with people, that, because obviously I hope that folks will have listened to this and will be thinking, and there's so much more to that, because we haven't really talked much about the home. Mm-hmm. So maybe is there just something little that you can sort of share about the home before we sort of go into sort of closing the program? Because I think it would be interesting for folks to sort of have something to do with the home, because we've talked so much about ourselves and then we chucked ley lines into the mix as well.
Right. Yes, exactly. And so when we talk ley lines, that means that your home is affected by that frequency. Okay. So your home has a factor that it's responding to in terms of the energetics. Not everyone has that, but we do work with the frequency of the home, and we are working to boost the frequency to the level of love. Okay. And there is a diagram, there's levels. We know where love is, and enlightenment is at the height of it. Once we're enlightened, which people are, they're now working on a higher level of consciousness. They're working on a different scale than other people. Okay. The ones who are working on that lower vibrational scale need to raise the frequency of their home to the value vibration, is what I call it, the love or above, because that is when your home is actually serving you. Okay. And this is on a human level, a personal level, spiritual, emotionally, physically, all that. It's serving you. It's helping you heal. And, we may not have overt trauma in our history, but we are on earth. We are on a healing journey. And when we attend to our space in this manner, right, this is the way that you do it. This is the way that you do it. Once you achieve your value vibration in your home, you're going to start to be feeling it in yourself, and you're going to be able to achieve a higher level of manifestation of your life than you were before. And I do believe that is our calling on earth, is, if you want to learn our lessons or pay our karma, or however we describe it, our healing journey. Coming to this world is almost the trauma for everyone. We're in this school to learn our lessons. This is your cocoon. I cannot stress more the importance of the environment and its impact on us as individuals.
So many people talk about, when they're sort of looking for a new home, about the feeling that a house gets. And you can't create that feeling. You've either got it or you haven't. You walk into a home and it just gives you a feeling of being home. And I don't know, I suppose I've had people come into places that has been my home, and it's been, oh, yeah, I love coming here, Sarah. It's lovely, relaxed. It feels like home. And so some people have that ability to create a home, and it's supporting others to then be able to take it that step further, to create that feeling of home rather than just a building you live in. So yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, really, isn't it?
Yes. The word patina is, it happens over time. It's an overtime thing. And some homes have that. And some people resonate with that feeling. Some people resonate with a brand new build, right? A fresh, clean slate. That's what's going to give them the foundation that they feel like they need to then put their energy onto the home. The Hygge, the Scandinavian practice, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but the coziness factor, right? That's where we get our seasonal nourishment. They were experiencing a lot of the dark days, and they came up with their own practices and rituals for that. Of course, it's all infusing spirituality, right? Being a little more dynamic of a person than just having the fancy home, right? Which a fancy home does not always equal that warm feeling. And it's what we put into it. It's what we put into it. And, you know, feeling the feelings of the person before you. We want to make sure that that is in alignment with ourselves and authentic, right? And that it suits us. Similarly, we could shrink our house. We could shrink, the house could be too big, right? Having it function appropriately is going to feel right. The location, you know, location is probably the one non-negotiable. And we can get into numerology too, to make sure that this house has the coding of what we want to produce in our life going forward, because a new house is usually a fresh start. So knowing that, oh, this one's going to promote family. Oh, we're trying to have a family. Okay, this is a good house for us, right? But if you don't have those goals, right, we don't know. We'll just be affected by the energy. We won't be cognizant of it even.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. I know we've touched on a lot, and I don't know how much of it actually goes way beyond where you were planning on us being, but is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to add before we close?
Well, and I think what you just said, you know, this is the depth of this practice goes very far. And as primarily an educator, I do pride myself is that I have in-depthly studied this so much that I can see that it relates to everything we're doing. and so, you know, it's information that it's still going to be relevant whether we know about it or not. And, you know, at this point, it's not like something I am actively setting cures, right? You can be super active in manifesting the life because that's where you're at, or you can take your moments to like, okay, this is my resting time and recover time, and I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor for this point and like store up energy for my next challenge, which inevitably will come, you know, and those challenges being an opportunity to grow through, depending on our attitude. It's all depending on the attitude. And again, there's toxic positivity out there that this practice does not adopt, right? We're going to acknowledge the shadows. We're going to embrace the things that we may not be as comfortable showing to the world. But all of that is the healing, is the things that we feel like we have to hide that then prevents us from being in the flow of life. And knowing that when we're in the flow, we're going to be giving back to other people. And so now we're the agents of change and working for the universe as well. And that's a wonderful place to be. It feels good, right? We're empowered, and it makes life, you know, all the poetry, the art, all that enrichment of life in essence, right? That's what this is going to help you work on. And it's very rewarding, very rewarding.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, Greta's website is natorg, NATORG, fengshui.com.
Correct. It is an organization promoting it, educating, and applying it on a large scale. So we are a national organization promoting this idea.
So if there's anything here that has spoken to you, you would like to learn more, then please do check out the website. And I take it there's a contact page that people can contact you, connect with you through the website.
Mm-hmm. Yes, all that is there.
So please feel free, if there's anything here that is spoken to you and you would like to delve deeper, do feel free to connect with Greta. And I take it that you don't just connect with people in the USA, because you and I've connected, and I'm in the UK. So
Right. Yes, that is so true. And there's downloadables, you can connect to an expert for guidance and questions, but there's a lot of information on the website. And of course, I will, work with anyone.
Bless you. Thank you so very much.
You too, dear.
So, and if you are watching the video sort of on YouTube, you will find that website address under in the information below. So Greta, thank you so very, very much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. Lots of things. Maybe we will have to have a talk about ley lines. Just you and I. Mm-hmm. Next week, myself and Scott are being joined by Chessie Roberts. Part of the book, I Didn't Become Selfish, I Became Harder to Manipulate. And Chessie's topic is evolution of self, when being whole is your goal, which I actually think speaks really well to what you've been talking about.
Yes, definitely.
So I hope you'll think about joining us for that. For any of our other programs, thank you so much, Greta. It's been a real pleasure. Take care, be safe, stay well. See you again soon. Bye.
Bye.